So we will kick this off. Everybody, hi. Thank you for joining us. My name is Joanna Yang. I am the CEO and founder of Braindom. We focus on training and development to create more harmony and collaboration in the workplace. We believe that companies can grow when they focus on people. And by leveraging technology and marrying it with our consultants, we can align business and people strategies to shift the company culture to be more people centric. And today, actually, we have our guest speaker, Julie Ha Truong. She's going to walk us through business planning with the focus on team buy in and successful execution. Our hope is that you walk away equipped to work smarter with others and not alone. So, before we get started, let me give you a little introduction for those of you who don't know Julie. For 20 years, Julie has supported thousands of leaders in achieving real and meaningful change. She's also the founder of Leadership Savvy. And with Julie, in her experience, she had led innovative cross-sector initiatives, leadership institutes, strategy consulting projects, as well as coach and recruit diverse executives. Under her leadership, she has expanded and trained staff, doubled revenue, and create a lasting systems change. So without further ado, I'm just going to pass it over to Julie, get this started with the workshop.
Our tools, Joanne is always up for like real take-home tools, as well as some interaction. So I think some of these events, we're here to build community, right? We're here to support each other. So we'll do a little bit of breakouts, but a lot of jam-packed tools today that will hopefully whet your appetite for really investing and planning and bringing people along as you plan. So I'll get started here. So our agenda is we'll talk about, I want us to share a little bit about our stories and what brought us here today. We'll talk about what it takes to really lead planning and projects successfully, just recipes for success. We'll look at some case studies, talk about that people side, the people management, right? Sometimes you have the best plans, but then they just fall flat. Why is that? And then give you some really specific planning tools that you can take away from today. And hopefully you walk away doing some self-assessment about where you are with the projects you've run or maybe are currently overseeing. So you have some action items that you can try on after you leave us today. All right, so I'm excited today about this topic because I get to share with you some of the magic that I've experienced with some of the teams that I've worked with that have helped us take this big, crazy idea and actually make it a reality. And I believe that all of us have that magic in us, but we don't always pause to recognize it. We just kind of keep moving forward each day at a time, moving on to the next project. And so I congratulate you, first of all, for taking the time to come to this training today to think about how can I work smarter, right? To continue that learning. And so we're going to do just a quick breakout, just a few minutes right now. In pairs, you might have 2 or 3 people in your room, but I want you to share what brought you here today. What kind of strategy projects have you worked on? Or is there one you're working on now that you would like to make sure you manage well? So what brought you here today? Share a little bit about your story in your breakout room. If each person just shares for a minute or 2, that's about how much time we have because we have so much content. And feel free to share your name, if you want to associate yourself with the company, but really get to the heart of when it comes to strategy and planning projects, what brought you here today? All right, I think we have everyone here. Good, hopefully it was nice to meet somebody or to get to know someone better and what brought them here today. Today, we're going to be talking about recipes for success. And so those give you the highlights of what you need to really be able to plan well. And our focus today will really be on strategy plus implementation. And so that's actually a lot to try and fit into one seminar, but it's so important because sometimes you have leaders who just focus on strategy, right? They build a lot of the systems or they write down the strategy and they're like, this is the be all end all. And you're either on board or you're not on board, right? I've actually had a leader tell me you're either on the bus or you're off the bus. Like there was no negotiation. So then you have the implementation side, and that's when things start to maybe stumble more. Because with strategy, you have excitement, right? Oh, we're building something new together, or the visionary has a clear path. Wonderful. And implementation is where the rubber meets the road, and things do get a little tougher, right? You have to make decisions, you have to allocate resources, you have different personalities. And then if you have different people, they have different agendas of their own. So it's important that when we are building out our strategy, that we remember the implementation side, so that ultimately our big visions can come to fruition. So that's why we've made more of a hybrid session today. So my recipe for success, and even when I stumble, like if that souffle comes out of the oven and it's all collapsed, I have to go back and ask, whoa, what happened here? And so when that happens to me with a project, I always go back to these three things: purpose, people, and people. Purpose, people, and process. Sorry about the typo. So the purpose is, why are we even here, right? I remember working with another CEO, and he was like, the turnover rate is so high. Like, these are competent people. We seem to get along. But when we asked him, what is the purpose that you're trying to build with this company? And he said, I just want to grow. That's it. Full stop. And so all of his employees, there was about 70 employees, and they're like, well, I did my job, but I'm just not motivated to stay long term. And they kept asking, why are we here? What are we building towards? So making sure you have a really clear purpose. In the nonprofit sector, it's great because we have missions. But in the for-profit sector, it's important too to have that mission, whether it's a corporate goal or a social goal, right? Pretty much every company, corporate or nonprofit, is built to make people's lives better. So really understanding your company's why and making sure that it is the lifeblood that your team breathes. So the people, do you have the right people on this bus, right? And are they engaged in the right roles? Is really, sometimes we have our team. The team that we start with might not be the team that we run with, right? And that is okay. That's a hard conversation to have, but a lot of times your employees are kind of waiting for you, or your volunteers are waiting for you to have that conversation with them. Be honest with them about what your needs are and where their skills are, where their interests are, and see if there's alignment. And if there's not, for you guys to gracefully say, okay, maybe we'll part ways for now, right? And you have that clarity about who's on the bus and why. And finally, the systems, the process, right? The structure. How will you work together? If this is your end goal and these are the people on the bus, what processes, tools, systems, communication channels will we use to make sure that you know how to work with each other well? That is where expectations on a day-to-day become clearer. You get away from the micromanaging, because you have a sense of what everyone is supposed to be doing at a given time. So that can be performance expectations, right? And accountability. And it can be really specific tools and technology that you implement to enhance your communication and your tracking and follow through. So those are the three things I always look at, like, oh, where did we fall short? And sometimes what we planned, and then, a couple months later, reality changes again. You have to go back and look again and reassess. So I want to share with you just a couple stories, because I really feel like that recipe can work in large and small situations, in different types of situations. So I have worked with some amazing visionaries. Like, I used to want to be a visionary. I have a lot of opinions, but like, visionaries really do see a different world, right? They are our pioneers. And there are a couple different pioneers I've worked with, and some of them really, they're able to make magic happen. And one pioneer I worked with, he always made that magic happen because he thought out loud. And he would tell everyone, this is the magic I'm looking to bring. This is the solution I want to make happen. And people were just enamored by it, and were drawn in. And that was wonderful. Another visionary I worked with, she actually was really successful. She had a company for 5 years and a team of a dozen people, but they were stuck. They just couldn't grow. For like the last 3 years, they were just stuck. And she said, I've never had a strategic plan. I've just told people what my ideas are, and they do it. And like, we believe in it together, so we make it happen. but they were stuck. So she's like, what do I need to do differently? And I asked her, do you sit down and plan with your staff? Do you have a strategic plan? Do you have a business plan? And she said, no, we've never needed that. So like, tell me a different issue. And I said, okay, well, um, you are now here, but where are you trying to go in the next 2 to 3 years? And so when we started, what we did is we started to talk to her team and ask, why is this train slowing down? And they said, well, we feel burnt out. Number one, we feel burnt out. We get that a lot. And number two, we are feeling a little bit lost. I don't know why I wake up every morning anymore, right? That long-term vision can only fuel you for so long. And then the day-to-day starts to set in. And so the CEO, she heard it and she's like, oh, I get it. You guys do need a strategy. We do need a business plan, a strategic plan. And so she was so excited. The next time I talked to her, she's like, I got it. It's all done. And I was like, oh, really? That's amazing. Can I see it? And so I saw it and it was a beautiful plan. I said, okay, so how did you get staff involvement and your board involvement? And she's like, oh, no. This is my plan. And so she wrote it all herself and never checked in with anyone else. And she's like, I'm just gonna roll it out, right? She said, I already emailed it to the board. The board, nobody replied. Like they didn't say it was a bad plan or anything. So clearly this plan is fine. And so I want to share with you that today it's not just about getting the plan on paper. It's about bringing others along. You're going to be so far ahead if you are the type of leader that not only puts the plan on paper, but can engage folks throughout that process. So when you're building out your project plan, your business plan, your strategic plan, whatever plan it is you're building, if you can be very strategic in making sure that people are providing input, that they feel like they're part of designing the plan, then when you're ready to implement it, they're already on board. Okay, so that's really the heart of today. So I always think about this this cartoon, this animation. I think it's called Fantasia, and how sometimes at the beginning everything seems to be working really well. I was working in a community that a lot of students just didn't have health insurance. A lot of were undocumented or their families were in poverty, so they didn't have health insurance. And even those who had health insurance were like really, it was not great insurance. So they would never go to see the doctor. And then we found another issue was if they did get an appointment, they would often miss their appointment because their parents couldn't take the day off work to take them to the appointment. And so when these issues came about, we actually shared it with some healthcare professionals, a clinic, a counseling service, a dental office, and we brought them together, and we felt like there was this magic that was happening, and suddenly everything was working well. And just like Mickey Mouse, like he was supposed to sweep the floors and mop the floors, but when he put on that wizard hat and all this magic was happening, do you guys remember what happens? It kind of like gets out of control, right? And he kind of sits back and takes a nap, and before he knows it, he's drowning in the water that these mops are supposed to be helping him with. And so, with that health clinic, I actually experienced that. Like everything came together. We had we built a new building. We had staff onboarded. We had students and families registered for this community clinic. And our vision, our purpose was that people should be healthy holistically. It's not just about healthcare insurance. It's not just about your doctor's appointment, but do they have good mental health? Are they in a place to come to school ready to learn? After school, do they have physical activity outlets, right? It's about that holistic system. And that's why that holistic vision was our wizard hat. It made everyone say, yes, let's do it. But then why did we feel like we were drowning when we launched the programs? And what had happened is people were infighting. They were like, oh, I thought the clinic hours were this. And we were sharing clinic space because we had so many services. And so The dentist didn't get along with the therapist, didn't get along with the doctors, and the nurses. And then there were all these like confidentiality problems. We had legal papers, like we needed to share client files. And so everyone had a different system. We were speaking different languages. And so what we realized is we had to go back to look at our purpose, our people, and process. And purpose was really clear, but only at the executive and the management levels. We did not take the time to properly train and bring along the frontline workers. It seems really obvious right now, but caught up in all the excitement of building a new clinic, we missed something very important. And so the reason today's session is about strategy plus implementation is actually from personal experience that I had over 10 years ago. And so doing these check-ins in a regular basis as you are working on your programs, do we have the right purpose, people, and process, can help you avoid some of the big issues that I experienced working on some big initiatives. So that was something we had to go back to the drawing board and really take extra time to work with our staff to make sure that they were also on board with the intent of this project. For people, we had a lot of community partners. And so, as I mentioned to you, everyone was collecting health data differently. And then I would have to report and synthesize the data. And I was going mad. It was like I could not, it just took so much time to understand. So we had to go back, and we realized that a process was missing. We did not have standardized language, data collection tools, right? How are we going to measure if this initiative is successful or not if we don't have the same language? So we had to bring in some folks who were more data driven, right? And technology people to help us build that out. How do we build out data systems and client management systems? So we needed different types of expertise, we realized, in the implementation phase, and continue to build out the processes. So I wanted to share with you a real life example. The good news is, after we weathered that storm, it's been 11 years now since that the set of health clinics have been open, and they're still doing amazing. They're still up and running. Students are coming to school with glasses, right? We had these first graders who couldn't see. We had kindergarteners with toothaches. Their teeth were just rotting before they were even falling out. And so to be able to give them proper dental care, right? So we have all these wins, but it was really stressful at one point. So again, the problem that I experienced is status quo is really hard to break through. Like, you can do a lot of planning, you can have all this like fanfare, and unless you really take care of all three pillars, the people, the process, and the purpose, all three pillars, folks are gonna just kind of go back to the way things were. I don't know if you've worked with teams before where you're like, okay, we had a meeting, we all agree, we're gonna implement this new chart or this new technology. And like 3 weeks later, everyone's just back to doing the same thing, right? And and that happens all across the board in all sorts of industries, all sorts of teams. And so what we are really faced with is actually change management, right? So not only are we trying to clarify the systems and make sure that implementation is thought through, what we are grappling with when it comes to people management is really change management. And change can be scary. Even if people know this is the right thing to do, this is what we need, it can still be really scary. And what I have seen over and over is management actually get discouraged. Project managers and team leaders get so discouraged when it doesn't work right away. And what I want to share with you is, a lot of times the executives and the managers, you've had a little bit more time to chew on this new idea. You've had the opportunity to provide input, perhaps, right? Or you feel a little bit more sense of empowerment than some of the other staff. And so some of the other staff or your volunteers or your team members, they may be hearing this for the first time. I remember sitting in a meeting where a big staff restructure, which was sorely needed. Like, this company I was working with didn't have a structure. And so they launched this organization chart and they were so proud of it. But all of us on the team were like, whoa, we didn't even know this was happening. And suddenly we had new job titles, new managers, new departments. And it was so scary, even though we knew this was what the company needed. So just know that it doesn't mean that people aren't on board. They just need assurance that their job is still safe, or that the roles and the skills they bring to the job are still valued. They need context, right? Before you launch the new plan, to say, hey, this is just a draft. We would like your feedback, or we are doing this organization chart because folks have had a hard time understanding who they report to. So we want to provide that clarification. So making sure that you provide context to why these decisions and this process is happening, and then just give them time, right? A lot of folks will announce it or call a meeting and say, I need your input, right? Or that email that CEO sent. I asked for the board for input and they didn't say anything. Well, they might not reply right away. You're going to have folks who are quieter, who need time to process. And so in that meeting, they may not say much. And in that silence, as leaders, as team leads, as executive leaders, sometimes we doubt ourselves and we say, ooh, it was a bad plan. People aren't on board. But that's not necessarily true. They might not be 100% on board, but what is more likely happening is they're grappling with change. And so give them that insurance, the context, and the time to process and to come to you and share how they really feel. But the fact that you are creating a space for them to provide input is already, they're going to see that you're building a culture of inclusion. So these are just some tips from McKinsey and Company. As you are going through the change, to provide real-time feedback, right? To be constantly checking in that, are these change processes that we're implementing working for you? Do you feel on board? A lot of folks who are lost or not totally bought in, you'll have folks who are very loud about it, but then you'll have folks who are very quiet. Actually, the majority of the people will probably be quiet and kind of just wait and see what happens. So doing the check-in on a regular basis is really important. Personalizing the experience for that individual, right? Because they want to be seen in this change. Otherwise, they fear being forgotten. Sidestepping hierarchy happens during change management. Sometimes people want to go through the bureaucratic systems, but this is a chance where everybody can come together and have a more horizontal conversation. A lot of times during strategy, that's a really exciting part, is folks are like, ooh, I've never had the executives meet with the department leads, meet with the line staff, right? So during strategic planning and managing change, there's a unique, sweet opportunity for a flattening of hierarchy. And then that empathy, I hope you can sense that throughout what I've been saying is about bringing a little empathy to those that we work with. And then to demonstrate the progress, right? Some of us are just, we're so looking at the goals ahead of us that we forget to celebrate what we've accomplished thus far. And my number one tip for celebrating progress and thanking people is to be specific. It's not good enough just to say, good job, team, you guys rock. I think it's really important that you say specifically, Cindy, we had such a short timeline and you were able to find a system that would work for us, and you built it out, and you even created 3 other people to take it on, right? So to be really specific about what that person did, and that reinforces it for them. They'll continue to show up that way. So that would be my one tip for celebrating progress and being specific about how you thank and acknowledge people. So I've mentioned, don't be so hard on yourself. If a change management doesn't work out right away, it's okay. It's totally normal because of that change management scariness. But also just the way groups work. We always form a new idea, a new group with excitement, right? There's this fervor like, ooh, this is exciting. I want to be a part of it. But when you agree on, okay, this is the work we're going to do, there's always a period of storming, right? Oh no, I thought we were buying system A and system B. Are you kidding me? That's going to cost 100K, right? Maybe we can't do that. Oh, let's abandon the whole project. Or people stop showing up to meetings, stop engaging. That's all part of the storming process. And that is your chance to go back and assess the 3 pillars. Do we have the right people, the right process, and a clear sense of purpose. And that will help you get through that rut. And it's okay to be honest with whatever team you're working with the partners you're working with, and say, okay, we can tell we're in the storming phase. Let's help each other get out of it. Because when you do, you're going to come out stronger with more clarity. Some people might not be on board anymore, but they'll probably be gone. It's just a natural part of building teams. Some team members stay and they anchor down and they're even more committed. And some team members may leave and go to a different project. But then you normalize your team and you figure out, okay, this is how we're going to operate in terms of purpose, people, and process. And then you get really good and you build that identity and you become this engine that can't be stopped. And that's when you are fully in performing mode. And performing mode only lasts as long as you continue to manage those 3 pillars well. And then eventually you may have to sunset your project or close out your project and celebrate that. Sometimes we call it rebirth, right? Or adjourning your project. And rebirthing, for example, is maybe you've built an amazing team and your project is over, but now you can use that team in a different project over here. And so your team may continue to evolve. So hopefully that makes you feel a little bit better that, if you fall into a rut, it's just part of the process. Sometimes people draw this process as like a slinky, because it kind of feels like you're going up and down. All right. So as I mentioned, this is hopefully the tool that you will go back to whenever you're feeling just a little stuck. And so I would like us to do a quick breakout right now, Joannie, if you don't mind, and talk about, think about a project that maybe you're working on now or that you've worked on before, where it was kind of unwieldy, right? Maybe a more difficult project, people dynamics, and talk about, is that project one that comes to mind because it was so awesome? It had just a great sense of purpose. It was all the right people and you had great systems. Or do you remember, ooh, we had some difficulties and I'm thinking maybe this was missing. Maybe we didn't have the right committed people at the table. Maybe the purpose wasn't as clear, or we were missing a significant part of the structure, right? I believe that it's in reflection that you will learn and it will stick. Everything I'm telling you today, you're probably going to forget 70, 80% of it. But how you reflect on what I say to your own life, that's what you're going to remember. So I want you to take that time in the class right now to share with somebody in this room. We'll break up into pairs of 2 or 3 again. And yeah, talk about a project you've been working on through the lens of purpose, people, and process. But after today, Braindom it's a community. So keep reaching out to Joannie and I, and to hopefully you made some connections here. Feel free to share your contact information in the chat box, so we can continue to support each other in this work. So for the last 10 minutes, I'm going to throw some big tools at you. Not like an actual hammer, okay? But like things that will be really really helpful. For some of you who have done it before, you'll be like, oh, this is a piece of cake. But for some of you, it'll be newer and you'll have a lot of questions about like how specifically to do it. And you can always email Joannie and I, and we'll get you to the right place. We'll get you some support to be able to really fully implement the tools. But the 3 tools are what a strategic plan is, what a business plan is, and what an implementation plan is. Because I wish I could tell you that you only need one plan. One plan is better than none. And depending on where you are in your project, one plan may be better than the other. So I want to present all 3 plans for you, and you may use them in different phases of your project or your business. You guys ready? All right. So the first one is the business plan. And this is where a lot of folks get overwhelmed when they're working on a business or a project. How do I even talk about what I'm doing and see what is my relevance, right? How am I unique in this crowded environment? And what do I need to do to make sure I move forward, right? What type of funding do I need? Where do I go to find that funding? How much should I charge? When will I start to balance the budget and be operational and make sure that we're not losing money all the time and that we're making money, right? And what team do I need? A business plan puts all of that on one document. And so it usually consists of these sections: executive summary, the description of your company and project, the structure, how many days a week, are you guys located in an office, in a storefront? That's what it means by structure operationally. Or are you online? Market analysis and approach. So first, understanding the market, right? And analyzing who your most immediate competitors are. But don't forget to also research those who are tangentially related. So maybe they're not in the clothing business, but they have a lot of online e-commerce, right? That you can learn from. So market analysis is understanding the landscape, but also such a great way to learn. And if you're not in a competitive industry, you can even reach out to them. And folks are so honored when you see the quality work they're doing, and they're really willing to share. And then approach. Then you need to figure out your market approach. All that research and data that tells you, if this is where the gap is, this is how we will be unique in addressing that solution. So writing down your marketing approach based on what you learned. So are you going to be online? Are you going to be word of mouth? Are you going to customize the experience, or are you going to create specific packages to sell? Team and operations. Based on all of that, what do you need to have in place to make it happen? Who are the people, and what are the processes you need? And then finally, this is really hard, I think, for some folks who are in business for years, don't sit down and create a budget, like a forward-thinking budget. What will our budget be for the next year, for the next 2 to 3 years? And that's really important, because as you ask for folks to join you, you're going to have to be able to say, this is my vision. This is our vision. We're going to grow from 200K to 1 million to 5 million, right? In this way. And if you don't plan big or plan for the future, you're going to get stuck back in that status quo, doing what you feel comfortable with. And you'll probably be successful and you'll stay at that million, but it'll be hard for you to really get to that 2 or 3 million unless you put it out there and you work backwards and plan for it. So this is a kind of the typical high-level business plan that every company should have. It can look beautiful. I like it when it looks beautiful. You can have a one-page business template. This is from HubSpot. You can have a 2 to 3 page, but something that internally you, your team, your staff, your funders, partners, supporters, vendors, all can see, this is what this company is about. Sometimes I have a plan that's more internal, because through all the planning, there's a lot of information you don't want to lose. So have a more robust internal plan, and then have a more beautiful kind of messaging focused, marketing messaging focused external version too. All right. So as you can see, that's a lot that we just covered, but I high leveled it. And so always let us know. We're always looking to provide more resources for you. So if in the future you want a seminar that fleshes something out further, we're happy to make that happen. So the second tool is the strategic plan. This is where teams are actually up and running. And so you already have your business plan set and your company is formed. But now, what are the specific goals that you are working towards? So if you're trying to set up that e-commerce fashion website and actually start making sales and create unique designs, what are some of the high-level goals that you want to accomplish in the next year or 2 to 3 years? So strategic plans have a shelf life of anywhere from 1 to 3 years. If your 3-year plan is really bold, maybe it might take you to 5 years. But if you're planning a strategic plan that's 10 years out, that's too hard to tell what the industry will look like in 10 years. So your business plan can have more of that 10-year vision, or even in your strategic plan, you'll have that long-term vision, but that's just one piece of it. The strategic plan really is about starting to help you actualize that big vision. So you'll do that internal and external analysis similar to the business plan, but now specific to your priority goals for the next 2 to 3 years. And again, these can be internal, external goals. Maybe externally, you just want to be able to be an influencer and be better known, or be a thought leader, an industry leader. That would be one set of goals. If you have an internal, you need to build up the staff capacity. I know so many businesses that, I swear, I'm like, how do you get all that done? You only have 5 staff people. They're working so hard. They really should be working with 8 or 10 or 12 staff people, but it's so hard to scale when you're working so hard, right? And so some organizations will use internal capacity as one of their primary goals for a strategic plan. So when you come up with your strategic plan, you'll want to come up with about 3 strategic goals. It can be 3 to 5 if it's really hard to, whittle it down. But have just those top 3 goals, like post it or it's really visible. These are our goals for the next year or 2. And then what are the key strategies that we will do to be able to meet all those goals? And how will you know if those strategies are successful? You have to come up with specific benchmarks and metrics. Big words. I know you start using some big words, sorry. But the benchmarks, what it means is a specific timeline and a specific measurable outcome. So if it is that marketing goal, the benchmark could be by Q1, right? Q1, we will have launched on 3 platforms. By Q4, we will have made maybe 10 new potential clients and 2 sales, right? So having those very specific benchmarks by time and by outcome, and then the specific measurable metrics. So that's what that bullet is. Really important. So many people write plans. They never get to the benchmarks and metrics. And so that plan is just like a good idea floating over here. So I don't want that to happen to you, right? And so for your staff and your employees, I mean, this is about implementation, making sure that they are on board, getting to this more granular level for organization strategy and business strategy is really important. And finally, the finance and operations. Similar to the business plan, if these are the goals, how will you have the resources to support that for the next 2 years? And what operations, what capacity, what staffing will you need? And again, this is one way to visualize what a strategic plan looks like on one page. I love visual one-page summaries because you can just, everyone's on the same page. It's easy to remember, but you would write out the vision on top. Maybe it's a 10-year vision. Some people even do 30-year visions, right? Something really big, an industry disruption that they're trying to change. And then you have your 3 strategic goals, A, B, C. For each goal, you have a couple or 3 strategies and specific benchmarks and metrics. So you can lay it out like that. And then finally, don't forget that after you have that big plan, each team or department or even individual should have their own implementation and evaluation plan. This means that the specific tasks in which they are responsible for to help meet each of those key goals and strategies is written down in one document. A lot of times staff will come to you with, this is my job, right? I work on these 30 things, but how are they aligned to your strategic goals? And if they don't align, maybe they shouldn't be focusing on it, right? So your strategic goals become your decision-making tools on where to allocate your time and resources. So the implementation plan is specific to an individual or team, and to evaluate, use those benchmarks. And individuals will have their own benchmarks too. What do I promise to accomplish within each quarter? And because we included them in the strategic planning process, they're more on board, right? And when they create their implementation plans, it's all aligned. Let's see, any other notes here? I think that's it for now. So finally, as just a summary, right? Here's some tools for you as you manage and lead, to always look at my typo. It just keeps showing up. Purpose, people, and process. And then the 4 tools of maybe what we need is a business plan, a strategic plan, an implementation plan, or an evaluation plan. And a combination of these tools, I hope that you are excited and even more excited to do planning and to bring others along. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Julie. As we get close to the end, does anyone have any questions for Julie? No?
Feel free to
Sorry, I just...
yeah. Use the chat box if that is comfortable for you.
I think I came in late, so I wasn't sure. So is the best way to stay connected or to follow more on these processes would be through, I know you provided the LinkedIn page and then the website as well, right? For all this?
Yes. So we will, if you registered, which you did, so you can access this, Braindom will be sending out a follow-up with the video and the slides. So you'll have access to all of it. And then here's my contact info and Braindom's info at the bottom. Oh, good. Thank you, Joannie, for putting our contact information in the chat as well. Yes, please send me what projects you're working on. I'd love to hear what was helpful. Honestly, this is a newer session that we've designed. Joannie and I work together to hopefully bridge strategy with implementation. Usually it's presented separately. So let us know if this session was helpful for you and if you have any suggestions, because I'll let Joannie take over because we have some other plans laid out too.
Yeah, thank you, Julie. Yes, this is with the partnership with Braindom and Julie. This is the first high level. We actually have a second series in July where we'll go in deeper in terms of hosting effective meeting and team culture. And then, so from there, that's where we have your contact information. Once that is all set up and ready, we'll definitely send it out. In the follow-up email, there will be the recording, like Julie mentioned, the slides, and also her contact information, so you can reach out to her directly. Awesome. Thank you, Julie. And thank you all for joining us today. Hope you guys got some insight. We're ready to see what you're going to implement and execute out in the world and impact the community that you're in.